Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Book Trek 2023, the summer of Trek. This is a BookTube event that was created by Vin at Revenant Reads. He's assembled a valiant bridge crew to read Star Trek fiction for the whole of the summer, all the hot, long dog days of summer reading Star Trek. Wonderful. I associate summer with Star Trek anyway, both the movies and the reading, so it's a joy to me, and there is so much Star Trek out there to read. Even someone who's loved Star Trek from the very beginning and read a ton of it, there's still an endless ocean of Star Trek stuff out there to read. And I found such a thing yesterday. The second novel in a series of novels about Riker, William Riker from Star Trek The Next Generation, getting his first independent command of the USS Titan. It was a series of Titan books. I saw them come out, but I thought, do I really need to... I think I need to know details from the Next Generation movies, and at the time I really didn't. Or I think I need to really care about this shared continuity, and I really don't. That has changed, mainly thanks to Book Trek. I have gained a new appreciation of the Next Generation and all the characters in it. So for yesterday's book, I went to one of the books in that series, but I didn't read the first book in the series. I read the second book in the series, The Red King, and I liked it. It's by Michael Martin and Andy Mangels, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was maybe not the most cerebral Star Trek that I've ever read, but slam bang for plotting, for page turning, and with plenty of recognizable characters and plenty of characters who weren't, plenty of interesting new characters. And I wondered when I read that, well, okay, for the next Star Trek book, will I just roam all around again, or will I go back and read the first book in that series? And that's what I ended up doing last night. I ended up reading Taking Wing, which is the first book in the Titan series, and introduces us to Riker's command and to his crew and to the catastrophe that stranded them in the Lesser Magellanic Cloud in Red King. So I felt like I'd already read this book, because the second book, Red King, does such a good job of telling its own story in the context of the story here that I really didn't feel like I was behind the eight ball at all when I read Red King first. Instead, what I felt when I read this book was that it was just fleshing out all sorts of details. And it's the same way. This writing duo, whether or not they always succeed this way, they totally succeed in this book. It's the same thing as Red King. It makes me want to just binge the whole series, but I'm not going to do that. I wanted to. Last night, I sort of off the cuff decided, no, you do want to read at least the first book in the series. It feels weird to read the second book without reading the first one, especially since the direct sequels. So I went back and read this, and I really, really enjoyed it. Once again, the same limitations as with the Red King. The main one being that I didn't feel like I was getting to know Riker at all, and he's the star of the show. I learned more. I got more of a feeling of reading an actual character about Deanna Troi in this book than I did Riker. And the same thing with his XO, the same thing with his number one. A better drawn character than him. I don't know if that's just that these two writers thought, surely everything that we ever need to know about Riker is already known, or maybe they felt like, Riker is an extremely canonical character, so we can't really muck around with him or dig too deeply into his psyche. I don't know that would be true. I can't help but think that pocketbooks would give them some leeway to do that with these things. But I read this. It's going to be a very, very brief Book Trek bulletin. I just wanted to let you know that I did go back and reread this, and that it is really good. This is a really entertaining series. I don't know if all the rest of the Titans books are this way. I confess, even now, I haven't really looked into it to see if all the books in the series are written by Michael Martin and Andy Mangels. If they are, I will be tempted to read the whole series, because they're working really well together. Writing duos don't always work really well together. But I don't know if they write them all. They might not, because this was, like I mentioned yesterday, these books are very much taking place in a kind of shared universe Star Trek fictional world that I don't like. I don't like the idea that you need to pass a doctoral examination in order to read a new Star Trek book. I don't like it if a new Star Trek book is dependent on events in earlier Star Trek books by different authors, maybe years ago. I guess I understand the appeal to the writers to work in a shared universe type world like that, but it isn't very appealing to the reader. At least this reader. So I think that's why I originally gave these things a wide berth, because I started to realize that's what they were like. And that is an element of the Star Wars extended universe that I never liked. That, you don't know about this character? well, I'm going to allude to something very important, but you're going to have to go back 3 years to a book by a different author to learn what I'm alluding to. I was pleasantly surprised by the Red King in that I didn't get much of that at all. If some of the characters in Taking Wing or in Red King are Easter eggs from other Star Trek books that I haven't read, they weren't treated that way. They might please a reader who does know who they are, but they didn't leave me feeling shortchanged at all. So my Star Trek experience last night was really good. Now I've read Taking Wing and Red King, and I'm tempted to go on to the third book in the series, but I'm not going to. Tonight I'm going to spin the roulette wheel and pick a completely different Star Trek book. Who knows what it will be? Who knows what it will be? I'm having such a blast just indulging myself in Star Trek every day. I'm having such a blast that I'm open for almost anything. I'm going to try to steer clear of rereads. I'm especially going to try to steer clear of Star Trek books that I have read many times. Because, what's the point? But we are still in early days. It's only the middle of June. There have been hardly any Book Trek videos by any of my co-hosts. That's how early we are in this thing. So it could be that in early August, I do want to do a bunch of rereading of books that I know backwards and forwards. Could very well be. I'm reading the novels of Sandra Mauschek and Myrna Culbreth with Randy Ray, the literate Texan, as part of Book Trek. And I know those 4 novels backwards and forwards. So maybe that's a start. Maybe I'll reread other things. It feels weird. I was noticing this the other day when I was, just a few days ago, when I was spinning the roulette wheel on the iPad for which Star Trek book I would read next. I was struck by the fact that in most other years of my life, I would consider it really weird that I have all these electronic Star Trek books, but almost no print and paper books. Once upon a time, I had whole bookcases of Star Trek books. Not anymore. Nope, not anymore. There's barely any. I think there's 10. But the future marches on, right? This is my data pad. So this seems a fitting place for my Star Trek fiction to be. But I think I'm going to be saying goodbye to Captain Riker and the crew of the USS Titan tonight. Pretty sure that I am. I think I want to go elsewhere. We shall see. We shall see what it is. I will report back tomorrow. Not all of these Book Trek videos have to be long and conceptual, right? So I'll wrap this up for now. These are just a reading report for you. I did indeed go back to the first book, and it was every bit as good as the second one. So I'm kind of on a roll, a mini roll for Book Trek. I don't like to say that because when I get on rolls in Book Trek, I then get hit really hard with one rotten book after another. But 2 pluses in a row. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. I will see you then. Thank you, Book Trek.